Yeah, there's two of them. If there's just one of them, it'd be an Éiníní.
Hello! As I am a bard, I do more than just sing, I also tell stories, so I am going to share a story with you. This is a story I encountered when I traveled to Spain. I've encountered many other versions of this story since then, English versions and Russian versions and Irish versions, but the Spanish version is still my favorite, so I'm going to share it with you now. This is the story of Loosemore. There once was a man named Loosemore. What are you doing?
I'm playing Loosemore's theme music.
I didn't know Loosemore had theme music.
He's the hero of the story, so of course he needs theme music.
Right. Loosemore was a very kind and generous individual. Everybody in the village loved him and thought that he would have gotten to marry the prettiest girl in the village, except for one problem. He was a humpback.
Aww.
There's a humpback theme too?
Must be a whale of a song.
Oh, very well. No theme music for the hump.
No. As I say, Loosemore was a very kind and generous individual. Everybody loved him, and he was always helping everyone in the village. And every Wednesday, he would travel through the forest to the village on the other side to help his old blind friend. He would clean his friend's house, he would cook his friend's meals, and they would sit and eat and chat into the evening. But one Wednesday, they spent so much time chatting and eating that it was quite dark when Loosemore set out to return home. And so as he's walking through the forest, he soon became quite lost. He decided that he would sleep until the morning when the sun came out and he would be able to see to find his way home. So he sat down at the foot of a tree and he went to sleep. He was awoken some time later by the sound of voices. He followed the voices through the forest and soon saw lights in the distance. He went towards the lights and eventually he came to a clearing where he saw a group of little men no taller than a milk pail. They were dancing and singing, and the song they sang was this. Lunes y martes y miércoles tres. Lunes y martes y miércoles tres.
What does that mean?
Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday 3. Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday 3.
I see. Days of the week.
Loosemore was amazed. He stood and watched, hiding behind a tree, but he soon grew tired of the repetitive lyrics, and so he started singing a slightly different version, very softly, very quietly, so they wouldn't know he was here. But the song he sang was this. Lunes y martes y miércoles tres, jueves y viernes y sábado seis.
And what does that mean?
Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday 3, Thursday and Friday and Saturday 6.
Oh, he added 3 more days.
He did. At first he was staying very, very quiet so they wouldn't hear him, but he began to forget that he was trying to stay hidden. He sang a little bit louder, and a little bit louder, and a little bit louder, and soon the little men heard him. They ran over and grabbed onto his legs. The eldest of the little men came forward and said, "Who are you and what are you doing here?"
Going for a walk in the woods at midnight. That's not what he said?
No. I'm sorry, sir. I didn't mean to disturb you. I got lost in the woods and I heard your voices. I just came to see what was happening. The eldest of the little men said, "We heard you singing something different. What was it?"
The days of the week.
Indeed. Loosemore demonstrated. Lunes y martes y miércoles tres, jueves y viernes y sábado seis.
I like that song. Play it again.
Lunes y martes y miércoles tres, jueves y viernes y sábado seis. The little men were amazed. It had never occurred to them to sing any more days before. They let go of Loosemore and started dancing and singing the new song that he had taught them. Lunes y martes y miércoles tres, jueves y viernes y sábado seis.
It's gonna be a big hit.
Loosemore was having fun dancing around with them, being careful not to step on any of them, and soon the sun began to rise. The eldest of the little men said, "We must leave now." The other little men said, "We like this gentleman, let's take him with us." But the eldest of the little men said, "No, he must stay here." But I know how to make sure that he will return next Wednesday to sing with us again. I happen to know that humans think that the humps on their backs are lucky.
He doesn't know much about humans, does he?
No, he does not. If we take his hump, then he will come back next week to retrieve it. And with that, the eldest of the little men jumped up, placed his hands on Loosemore's back, and Loosemore stood up straight for the first time in his life. He looked around and he saw that the little men had vanished, and he was back home in his own village.
Hooray!
The villagers came out and said, "Who are you?" "It's me, Loosemore." "No, you're not Loosemore." Loosemore!
They're not very bright either.
It just so happened that in this same village there lived another humpback by the name of Joaquin.
Ooh, Joaquin has pretty theme music.
He does, which is unfortunate because Joaquin is not a very pretty individual. Where Loosemore was kind and generous, Joaquin was cruel and greedy. As soon as Joaquin heard the news, he went straight round to Loosemore's house. He knocked on the door and demanded that Loosemore tell him the whole story. Loosemore, being the nice guy that he was, told Joaquin everything that had happened. Joaquin couldn't wait until next Wednesday. Finally, next Wednesday arrived. After dark, Joaquin wandered out into the forest and walked until he was quite lost. He sat down at the foot of a tree and went to sleep. He was awoken sometime later by the sound of voices. He followed the voices and soon came to the same clearing, where he saw the same little men dancing and singing the song that Loosemore had taught them. Lunes y martes y miércoles tres, jueves y viernes y sábado seis. Joaquin didn't wait. He jumped out and shouted, "El domingo siete!"
And what does that mean?
And Sunday 7.
Uh-oh.
But the little men were repelled by the mention of the holy day.
Plus, it doesn't fit in the song.
Also true. The eldest of the little men said, "If that's the best you can do, we don't want you coming back after all." With that, he took Loosemore's hump and he threw it onto Joaquin's back. Joaquin was doubled over under the weight of 2 humps. He looked around, and the little men had vanished. He was back home in his own village. The villagers came up to him and said, "What happened to you?" And he said, "I don't want to talk about it."
Probably wise.
In the end, Joaquin died alone and miserable. And Loosemore ended up getting to marry the prettiest girl in the whole village. And now, to this day, when anyone in that village says something really stupid, they always say, "Salió con el domingo siete."
And what does that mean?
He came out with his Sunday 7.
That's a great story.
Thank you.
Huzzah!